What's up, everybody? This is Greg Birch with Delta Financial, and this is the Be the Difference podcast. This podcast is all about making you a better person in your life and in your business with coaching on sales, leadership, mindset, marketing, everything under the sun when it comes to being an entrepreneur. And we bring on guest speakers. Today, our guest speaker, Joey Watkins, wants to talk about mindset, marketing, and sales. So we're going to hit all three of those in one topic. Joey, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing very well, man. I cannot complain. It's been a good day, good productive day so far. Good week, good weekend. So, why don't you talk a little bit about what we discussed beforehand, and get it rolling.
Okay. Well, a lot of times, being in this industry, people they're agents, they're scared to talk about what we do. A lot of times, people as a whole give pushback because part of our job is talking about morbidity every day. Death isn't something we want to put in the forefront because it's not something that excites us, makes us happy, and whatnot. But unfortunately, it's a part of life. And so, as we call not being a secret agent, actually, putting yourself out there, the one of the easiest conversation pieces with me, I can talk to anybody, but if you ask me, hey, well, what do you do for work? Well, you just open that door. I'm going to rip off the hinges, and we're gonna go down this rabbit hole, and we're gonna have all kinds of conversations, and it's just going to kind of go from there.
Yeah.
And where I actually live is kind of like a melting pot. I live down in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and it's a huge retirement area, vacation area. So you get a little bit of everything. I've met people from all over the country, literally going 5 minutes from my house to certain places sometimes. And so, just kind of having that open door concept, it's really, it can really bring a ton of value to your business. And the fact that we can operate in all 50 states from your office right here at home, that makes the viability of that conversation that much, on a larger scale, so to speak.
What I like is you're talking about, specifically, I want to hone in the comment you said of not being a secret agent. I feel that there's a lot of agents that are afraid to talk about it because they feel like, well, I don't want to just, put people out. I don't want to just be hawking my wares, doing this, that, the other, come off as salesy. Why do you think that people refuse to do what you're doing successfully? Because you've done it quite a bit, and I think you're just a talkative person and a personable person. Like you're fine talking about whatever with anybody. You'd have a conversation with a wall probably. But why do you think that people have that mentality, that mindset, and what prevents them from sharing the experiences or the products and services that we have?
I think it could come down to it could be, you personality wise or thinking that you might be a certain personality. Mine has definitely adapted and changed for the better. And I've definitely had tons of growth, since working with you guys. And, that opens up a different, sector up in my mind, I guess, to a point. I've always been the type that I'll talk to anybody about anything as long as I know something about it. I'm all about giving my 2 cents. But if you talk to me about, ladies' pantyhose or something, like I'm not going to speak on it, and don't ask my opinion because I can't give you anything. Right.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of random weird things. I grew up like stuck to Animal Planet, Discovery Channel. Shark Week is one of my favorite things of the year, which is odd and weird sometimes. But I really like learning about things that are kind of off the beat path, so to speak. And I've always wanted to do Jeopardy, I guess, but I'm not those guys. But I mean, at the end of the day, I really think it's getting out of your own way and out of your comfort zone. And, when new agents especially are coming in, it's working with leads and this and that, but there's so much you can do by just opening your mouth and talking.
Yeah.
Experience we were talking about, I had my annual physical with my doctor last week, and going in there, my doc knows what I do. We've talked about different things. I've actually helped a couple of our family members out with coverage and whatnot. And I was just simply checking out to book my follow-up, 90 days from now. And I'm trying to get a lot more in tune as I've gotten older, doing my routine checkups quarterly or at least biannually. And we were booked an appointment, And the receptionist just got to talking to me and went from there. And we started talking about it. And then two other ladies in the background, and one of them in her 20s literally asked me, well, at what age do you think we should start looking into life insurance? And boop, opportunity, right? So instead of trying to do this and that, I'm working on now doing what I call a lunch and learn. I've done these in other prior careers. I'm going to go buy them lunch, feed them, sit down, we'll have an open conversation and see what their different needs are. Because this isn't a very large practice. It's probably about I'd say 10 to 12 employees, but I'm going to be able to look at them, for things from not just them immediately, but their spouses, their children, possibly. Look at different, a pension came up during the conversation from one of the ladies for her husband. I mean, there's just so many different facets. That simple one, I'd say, minute and a half long conversation, exchange of contact information could turn into 12, 15, even 20 policies from a referral basis down the road.
Mm-hmm. So to wrap up a little bit what you said, I feel that a lot of it is a lack of confidence and a little bit of fear. The lack of confidence of just talking to people, which you do frequently. You talk to a lot of individuals, but the fear of like, what are they going to think about me if I try to talk to them about this? Right. Or what if I don't know everything? And it's almost like an overcomplication within your mind of something very, very simple. Life insurance pays off, it pays funds tax free to the person that you want it to pay to the day that the worst happens. Done. Like, oh, and also it can pay if you get sick while you're still alive, if you become disabled. It can pay if it can pay you back your money if you have a return of premium, if nothing happens to you and your policy ends, give you your money back. Or it can also do things like grow cash value and tax free in a cash value account on an index basis. So really simple, right? So I think that people feel that they have to know everything before they talk about it. But if you just talked about that simple concept, you could just start to branch off from there based on where the conversation goes. And if you can help the person, awesome. But you're just having a conversation and generating interest. But then also in a conversation, like you talked about the lunch and learn. You're going to have a conversation with them and see what their situation is, see what they needed.
If I
ask
someone,
questions.
yes, and it's just listening, but asking the right questions. And I think another big piece is, life insurance for the longest time was designated to be something that was utilized upon death.
Mhm.
Well, life insurance is for the living, almost sometimes more so than for death. And, a lot of times I think people get nervous. I just recently turned 34. I would say from a perspective of me, before I got into this industry, it wasn't really something I really thought about. But then I use personal experience too, because my little brother passed away about 3.5 years ago at 28, almost 29 years old. And we didn't have coverage. And so that was something that I personally went through. And, talking to somebody about, when you're mourning, the last thing you want to worry about is finances.
Yeah.
But people have jobs, they have to be paid to do certain things. And so having to go through that stress and that struggle and come out of mine and my older brother's pocket, to be able to take care of those things, that'll wake you up. And so I think a lot of it too is, people being nervous about trying to speak to someone that's maybe in their age, range, like if they're 20s or 30s or even 40s or 50s. Sometimes, a lot of times people, they're more comfortable with gravitating to, I guess, the norm of what life insurance should be. But I mean, the state I'm in now, if somebody's in their 20s and they're interested in just listening, we're going to be having a whole different conversation than talking about life insurance for death. We're going to be talking about life insurance for now, setting up your retirement, making sure that all the hard work you're putting in now makes sense for when you achieve what you're working to achieve in the first place.
Basically using it as an asset.
Yep.
Yeah. Because that's what it'll do is over time, it becomes not a liability, but an asset. That because you grow so much cash value that it's paying you, basically it's growing money. It's paying you by the money that it's growing by on a monthly basis, more so than what you're putting in. So it now becomes an asset versus a liability. that you can use in retirement and retire off of.
Correct. And I think with me, I don't ever come across salesy. If I start to, I kind of pick up on their body language and I really kind of dumb it down. But my big thing is I've been in sales for half my life. And, unfortunately, this is some sort of a sale. There's an exchange, whatnot of services. But at the end of the day, the way I look at it, I am just giving the information to help them make an informed decision. If that informed decision is something I can take them and expedite the process for them to achieve that, awesome. If I'm not the guy, then sometimes I might even refer them to somebody that's more up their alley from that perspective. If insurance isn't what they're really looking at, might be a bigger perspective that's out of my realm. Well, I am going to then bring in somebody that's going to help bridge that gap. And that's just pretty much how it goes. And so it's a very reciprocal thing, not only with the potential client in person, but also to listening to what they need, but knowing what questions to ask, what pertains to them. But the biggest thing is what pertains to them now, what's going to make sense for them right now, 5 years from now, 10, 20, 30, and so on.
Yeah.
Figuring out those objectives and those wants and needs and dreams that they have, whether they're realistic or not, you're helping them paint a realistic picture and kind of bringing them down, I always say from 30,000 feet down to the landing spot. And when you can do that and work with them and not talk at them, you'll have people calling you before you even reach out to them with any type of information. And that's actually what did happen a few days ago. So it was pretty cool.
So if you're talking to if you were to be talking to an agent or an agent reaches out to you because they hear this and they're like, man, this is awesome. Like, how can I get started to do this? Like, how do I find opportunities while I'm in my daily life or doing whatever? Out going to the bar or going to the restaurant to have a food or going to my doctor's office like you did. How do I find these opportunities and how do I broach that initial contact? Kind of talk through that.
So I think now, because it's so second nature, it's harder for me to kind of like really pegs a specific thing.
So basically just get started.
yeah. But it's just like, I just generally, I take my dogs everywhere with me. If you see me anywhere, I got a book bag on and this is with me. I got data on it. I've written multiple instant issue policies on there, sitting at a beach bar, hanging out with my pups and just making conversation with people. And where I live, it's easy because it's the first thing you ask, oh, where are you guys from? Every time you see somebody, they have a New York hat on, a Philadelphia affiliate, something. They're coming down from up north. And we end up in conversation, and then it's, oh, well, what do you do for work? Because you're out here and you're just kind of relaxing. You live here, so what do you do? And then it goes from there, and it kind of spirals outward. But it's not oh, do you have life insurance? It's not like
exactly.
It's you just and you've even experienced it before. If you can literally try to just say a nice thing to one stranger every day, or just make it a point to conversate. And that is one of my hardest things. It used to really be. But when you can, open up the door to whatever you're comfortable with. If you're a male and you don't feel comfortable speaking to women, find an older gentleman sitting there by himself. Go sit. Hey man, is this seat taken? No. Cool. What's your name? Easy. Conversation starts, and who knows? You can meet somebody in an airport. Yeah, you never know. But what we do for a living is there's a want and a need for it. And
yes.
it's everything proof, pandemic proof, stock market proof. There's nothing that really is going to take away. People are always going to have babies. People are always going to pass away, death and taxes. And so we get to avoid taxes with a lot of it, well, most of it, if not all of it. And then we have the death aspect. So we're kind of in this sweet little middle ground where we can't be touched, whatnot. And it helps a ton. And, bringing people to reality of we're not in control of this time clock. Our card's getting pulled whether we want to or not, and we don't have anything to say about it. So, but are you going to be prepared to leave your family in a financially stable standpoint if that were to happen and you didn't wake up tomorrow? I love that question, because it really, even as I'm saying it to somebody, it makes me go, man. So I have tons of coverage on me and my family, just for the simple fact of I don't want to be a hypocrite.
Yeah.
And who am I to try to help you guys out? And it's always most people that within that conversation, it is, well, I had something for a little bit, and that one particular lady that opened the door. She said, well, I had something for a little while, and I just kind of like, I just don't fool anymore. Well, 3 heart attacks later at age 41, now she's a little impervious to it, and a little nervous again. Mm-hmm. So that's where that conversation goes, and making it work.
I mean, there's a lot of things that you're breaking down here, and I love it. I love all this. You have a lot of coverage on you, and this is if you're in insurance and you don't have life insurance, you don't believe in it, it's going to be real hard to sell it. Right. I'm not saying that you need to go get a bunch of policy on yourself, but if you don't even have your own product on yourself, real hard to sell it to sell to another person and convince them to get it as well if you don't even have it yourself.
So I'll whip mine out right there and go, look, see, I have one too. Same company. Yeah. If I ever get any pushback about something, if I can't trust them helping you, why in the world would I trust them helping my family?
Exactly. Done. Exactly. And then I like how you're just talking about like, hey, you're not going to come up and just be like, hey, I'm in insurance. Do you need a policy? Like, that's not how it goes. No. You start the conversation. Do random acts of kindness. Like, compliment somebody on something you see. Take a seat and then look over, like, oh, I really like your nails. They look really awesome. The female, and hey, I like your shoes. Or, hey, they got a team hat on. Hey, is that your favorite team? Awesome. Like how they play last night or whatever. But compliment them on the things that you can see to start a conversation, because people like that. People like to be talked about. And then they start talking about themselves. You just talk about them. And eventually what's going to happen is they're going to ask about you, and they're going to be more willing to want to listen when that time comes, when they do ask. It makes it a really easy transition, and you can talk about it, the importance of it. And when you have belief and passion about what you're talking about, that belief and passion transfers to them. And they're like, man, you really like what you do. It's like, oh, I love what I do. I get to help families. I've been able to help a ton of families. Like, I've had some clients pass away, and I've been able to make sure that their family gets the check. And, that there's nothing that's greater than seeing the hard work pay off and the family get taken care of in their time of need when they need it the most. And they didn't even realize how much of a blessing it was until it happened, But I had a story. I was in an airplane, and we were loading, and the lady came up, and she was like, "Oh, is that seat taken?" Because it was Southwest, it was open seating, and I was like, "Oh, no," and she was like, "Okay." So she started to put her bag up, and I was like, "No, let me grab it," and I grabbed it for her, and I put it up into the overhead compartment for her, and then she sat by the window. I always take an aisle seat because I'm massively long legs, and usually uncomfortable. So me doing that got her to start talking to me. And then she was like, you look like somebody. And she was like, are you this person? I was like, no. She was like, do you know this? I was like, I have no idea. And she pulled it up on her Instagram. She was like, this is the guy. And so we started talking about it, and we had this whole conversation. And I actually asked her what she did and why she was traveling. And I was like, hey, what are you traveling for? She said, travel for work. I was like, what do you do? And she had her own company. And Twisted Wares, by the way, is I still remember the company because I bought a bunch of stuff from her.
Yeah, I think I remember you telling us about this.
I bought a bunch of stuff from her. But she was like, what do you do? And I told her, and she was like, can I get insurance on myself for my business? I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, you would just put your, you can get like an IUL or a massive policy, but you'd put it towards like whoever would be taking care of the business that would get the funds for the business. It doesn't matter. You can beneficiaries, whoever you want it to be. And she was like, yeah, I need to sit down with you, because I need to get this taken care of. I've actually been talking about this for a while, and I haven't, talked to anybody.
That's how it goes.
And I was like, yeah, definitely. I was like, well, how about this? Here's my phone number. I gave it to her on the plane while we're in the air. And I was like, and she texted me also as soon as we landed, a code, which was her special code for like, for getting discounts. Mm-hmm. She was like, here's my code. Order, you can give to whoever you want, but order, it's 20% off of everything. And I was like, that's dope. Thank you so much. And I ended up ordering something right away. But I was like, hey, I was on a trip. I was like, I'll be gone for the next 3 days. I get back to Dallas. She lived in Dallas too. I get back to Dallas on this day. And she's like, well, I'll get back the day after. And I was like, well, I'll reach out, a couple days afterwards and just see. And we'll schedule a time that I can come sit down and talk with you. And she was like, yeah, it's perfect. She actually reached out to me. She's like, hey, I landed, blah, blah, blah. Let's set up something for the next couple of days. Okay, perfect. I ended up writing a mortgage protection policy on her, a mortgage protection policy on her husband, a massive, like large term on her that was outside the mortgage protection, that was for her business, and then an IUL on both her and her husband. And I did 5 total policies that for the commission, all for everything, the commission for everything ended up being close to like 15,000 for everything all combined. And it all came because I took her bag and I put it into the overhead compartment and we had a genuine conversation. You know, you never know. I wasn't searching for it. I was genuinely trying to be nice and just help her out.
And that's when it happens. When you're searching for it, you got commission breath, you're on the hunt.
Yep.
You're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yep.
Just don't be a shitty person. It's like
that's a good point. Yeah. If you anyone that's really good at sales, it's not that they're exceptional sales, it's that they're an exceptional person. They just happen to be in sales.
And I was raised in the South. I've always opened doors for women. Doesn't matter if I'm with them or not. Business doors, whatever, car doors. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Sirs as well. Pleases and thank yous.
Yep.
It's just, and I think also to the other pieces, being aware of your surroundings. It drives me nuts when I'm just like walking and then within 3 minutes, I've had 4 people hit me on this arm, one over here. Somebody hit me with a grocery. It's just like, pay attention. It drives me nuts, but it is what it is. But so, I mean, those things, those really will pay off, and they can be a rarity. Especially, I lived up north for a little bit, and I opened up a door for a young lady at a gas station on the way to work at the time, and she yelled at me and told me she could do it herself. So I politely closed the door and said, let her do it. And then she felt bad afterwards. And next question is, where are you from? Well, I wasn't working insurance then, but I can promise you if I was,
you'd have been selling her.
Definitely would have sold her something, because it just, that's just kind of how it goes. But yeah, the second you stop going out, and I've been doing this for long enough now that it just comes second nature, but always being prepared.
Yeah.
Don't ever go into it looking and hunting, but always be prepared that if it falls in your lap, you gotta be prepared to respond accurately and with proper information. And so looking back at the transition, when I first started, I would just do final expense, or I'd talk about it. Maybe I'd talk about a term policy for mortgage protection, whatever. But now I just had a 22-year-old young professional woman ask me, well, what age should we really start looking into it? So first thing that comes to mind is, okay, 22 years old, pretty decent job, lives in a good area. We're going to absolutely go over an IUL scenario right off the jump. Mm-hmm. If that doesn't, make sense for her, then we're going to pivot to a different type of product. But at that age, now being in that field of things and really digging into it, just from an overview, that would be my first inclination of it before actually digging in further, but not also putting a label on it and thinking that's the product we're going to do.
Yeah.
It might be what I have in mind, but I'm going to ask appropriate questions to figure out what's going to suit her best right now. And I'm also going to follow up with her on a regular biannual or annual basis, because especially at the age of 22, what can happen between 22 and 30? Marriage, families, you can start having kids, you can buy a new home. Well, she started here. Well, now there's all these other things that have come.
So there's other opportunities that you're building, because that is a client book of business you're building. You're staying in contact. You're providing value always. Exactly. You don't think about, because people don't think about like, oh, well, it's just going to be a small term policy for now.
Yeah.
You stay in contact with that person, and you're writing handwritten letters, and you're giving them birthday cards, and you stay in contact once a year, talk about different products you would get access to, stuff like that. When it comes time to, they have a life situation change, just bought a new house, they're going to be like, hey, it's got a new house. Oh, perfect. Do you have any mortgage protection on it in case something happens that you get sick, you can't work, you're going to get the mortgage payments sent to you? No, I don't. Hey, let's sit down and have a quick conversation, see if this is something that makes sense for you. Let's get you on the calendar. Okay. Yeah. Here's my calendar link. Schedule a time that makes the most sense for you.
And very, very similar to, what you spoke about that lady on the plane. I have a family that I started with 2 mortgage protection return of premium policies, went back 3, 4, 5 months later, revisited, make sure everything's still good with them, checked on some stuff they had going on with their daughter. Just before that, I got DFL certified. Well, we did a $1,200 a month DFL. 6 months later, we do a $2,300 a month IUL. So this family is paying $3,800 a month as a blue collar family to utilize all the assets that they're trying to create at age 55, but by age 63, 300K refinance mortgage of 3 months ago, and everything else that they have, they are debt free, free and clear, and have expendable income plus a pension, and they're going to be good and can retire 2 years earlier. So, it's really, it's building that value. But the part that also too that I try to teach my agents is they're like, well, how do you write a term policy and then you go and do an IUL, and they don't just get rid of that too? There's a purpose for that. There's a purpose for this. There's a purpose for that.
There is no one insurance that rules it all. You can't. This isn't the Lord of the Rings, the Lord of the policies.
Right. You put your eggs in different baskets.
Yeah.
And so, God forbid something were to happen on either side of the spouses in that family, they're taken care of. And it wasn't that I was going in trying to replace things. I was giving them information on things that I thought would suit them and their situation better. Yeah. But I can tell you right now, they have everything put in place. I will always still follow up with them. And, we'll look at potentially changing around the IUL here and there, the indices to make the most sense. But outside of that, we're not really writing any more new products. But because I had them in such a great place, the husband is trying to get his friends that he works with and their spouses to come to his dining room table and me come over and me lay it all out for them, because he says he doesn't want 10 years from now then be going, well, what are you doing? And he's in such a good spot, and they're over here mad because they didn't take advantage of it. So he's now becoming my salesperson to really bring people to me from a referral standpoint. Yeah. So, and that's just, to me, that's just good business. And that's not shoving products down people's throats. That's being educated in what you do and showing them the value. And if it makes sense for them, they're going to do it.
I like it. So I love how you broke all this down. You talked about, in a mindset of like just talking to everybody and being open, being, putting people first, listening to them, generating these conversations. That's also a marketing tactic, right? Reaching out to everybody and just being open to talk about what it is that you provide when the conversation strikes, when it happens, not trying to push it. You're not trying to just, have that commission breath and just talk about it all the time, but it will come up in conversation if you do have genuine conversations with people. I like the concept of like talking to strangers every day, one, talking to strangers every day, but two, doing random acts of kindness. It does make a massive impact in your business. And lastly, this is just good for sales. Like, you broke down all three of those in one concept. So Joey, this was awesome. I appreciate you coming on board and sharing your experiences and talking and breaking this down with everybody. If anyone has any questions, they want to talk more about it, and like kind of get your take on how they can do this better, how they can practice this, what's a good way they can reach out to you?
So my IG is right here. It's J_Watkins_Delta_financial. My work cell is 912-356-6600. And you can reach me by email. That's probably the quickest and fastest, is J Watkins, first initial last name, at deltafinanciallife.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joey, for coming on and having a good conversation with everybody. I know that this is a lot of value. And if you watched till now, then I know you got value out of this. Do me a favor. I need your help to grow this. We grow by word of mouth. Take a few moments to rate, review, and share this content. Push it out to other people. Put it on your stories. Tell somebody about it, and help to get Joey's message out there so that more agents or even sales professionals can have success. It only takes you 60 seconds, but it means the world to us in order to continue to reach more people and help more sales professionals in the field while they're selling. This has been the Be the Difference podcast. I'm your host, Greg Birch. Until next time, deuces. We'll see you guys.